Hello, my name is James, I'm 35 years old and I'm from the United Kingdom. This is my second day in Turkey after coming to visit Hair of Istanbul for a beard transplant. I have to say, I was a little bit nervous coming over initially. However, as soon as I arrived, I knew there was no need to be nervous. From the moment I inquired via WhatsApp, the communication was phenomenal. The moment I arrived, I had a driver and an interpreter. Yeah, so I'll admit, before coming over, I was a little bit nervous, obviously coming over to a foreign country where I don't speak the language by myself was a bit of a daunting prospect. However, I very quickly realized there was no need to be nervous. From the moment I made my inquiry until the day of my operation, it was about a month, and I was communicating with Mehmet via WhatsApp the whole time, and honestly, the communication was fantastic. You know, 24/7, night, day, anytime I had a question or needed to change something because of the coronavirus pandemic, they got back within minutes, so that was really reassuring. The moment I arrived in Turkey, I was a little bit nervous because they said that I'd have a driver and interpreter waiting for me, but it was still just a little bit scary not knowing what if they weren't there. I didn't need to worry. I arrived and they were both there looking sharp, dressed in black with a red tie and a pin, looked swish, man. So yeah, they took me to the hotel. They were really friendly, made an effort to really put me at ease, which was a big thing because I was still just a little bit nervous. But by the end of that trip, I actually just felt excited and I couldn't wait. And they took me to this hotel, and honest to God, it was gorgeous. It's real luxury. And yeah, that night I went out for dinner, came back. The morning after, they picked me up and off I went to have my procedure. And honestly, from the moment I stepped in, they treat you like a king. Everyone is so friendly, they're so polite, they're so professional. They do anything they can to make you feel comfortable, which is really handy when you're going in for what I consider to be such a big procedure. I started off by going and registering my details, filling out a consent form and deciding what I want for lunch. And most importantly, we're not talking like a sandwich and a packet of crisps here, we're talking like a delicious meal, so I was a very happy man. And straight after that, I went into another room to kind of talk about my beard, the shape I wanted. There was about 3 or 4 members of the team, and I think that the person who drew my beard on was actually the CEO of Hair of Istanbul. And I really respect that because it shows that even at the top level, they're still invested. I felt like they were there for me. I didn't feel like I was just another number, that they were trying to kind of like see me, rush me out and get the next person in. If I wasn't sure on something, they took the time to fix it. So at first they drew a beard and it was quite high, so I asked for it to be a little bit lower. Not a problem at all, they happily did that for me. And so once I did that, they shaved my donor area and off I went to kind of start the procedure, which was so exciting. I'll admit, I freaked myself out the night before because I hadn't been crazy nervous about the procedure itself, but I'd watched a couple of YouTube videos just in preparation for it. And there was one video that I watched which said that the anaesthetic was excruciating. So I was a little bit concerned about that, but bless them, the doctor in there clearly saw how nervous I was and gave me some to relax. And honestly, that made it just so bearable. Yeah, the anaesthetic hurt a little bit, but it was completely manageable. After that, I broke for lunch. That took a couple of hours, but the lunch was just delicious and just what I needed to get ready for the next part of the process. So after lunch, I went back in to start the procedure properly, really. And we started with somebody. So she gave me this and then started with the anaesthetic. And I have to say, it was a little bit painful, but absolutely manageable. Nothing to really panic about. They gave me about 10 to 15 injections, I think, just to numb the area, because the area that one injection numbs is about that big. So it took about 10 to 15 to numb it. And after that, they started extracting the hair with a little kind of drill. I didn't feel a thing. I could hear it, but I didn't feel a thing whatsoever. That process took about an hour and a half, I think. And after that, which was completely painless, we broke for lunch, which was lovely. It was a delicious kind of like meaty wrap with chips, and it was great. I mean, I had one of the members of the team who spoke English keep me company as well, make sure I was okay. Again, at every single point of the process, they just made sure I was happy. So I have nothing but praise for the team at Hair of Istanbul. After that, I went back in to really start the procedure. And that's when another professional came in and they started opening up the channels so that they could implant the grafts in my hair. Again, didn't really hurt at all. I had some more anaesthetic around my face, which is why my face is a little bit swollen. But I know that will go down in 3 to 4 days, so nothing to be concerned of. And yeah, so they opened up the channels. That took about an hour and a half again, not a very long time at all really, because of this, I was in and out of sleep anyway, so I was loving life. I was having a great time. And then after that, they started implanting the grafts. There were 2 technicians doing that. That process was the longest. It took about 4 hours. But like I said, they were always checking in, making sure I was okay. I was able to watch TV or listen to music or sleep. So honestly, the process flew by. At the end of the day, I felt a little bit tired. It was a long day, obviously. Yeah, so that took about 4 hours. It was probably the longest part of the day. But yeah, eventually we were finished. It was a long day, so I was a little bit tired, felt a little bit worse for wear, understandably. But as I left, the doctor they wrapped me up again. They gave me a goodie bag, which had kind of like steroid, antibiotics, just a couple of treats to make sure that I could look after myself properly afterwards. They told me how to look after myself for that night. And then again, they drove me back to the hotel. Today was the day after the operation, and I went and I got my bandages removed. Again, pain-free. Went to the clinic this time, not the hospital, which is a different part. And again, just like the hospital, they've invested in making it so beautiful. Again, it's marble, something out of a mansion. You can tell they care. They're friendly, they're professional, they're reliable. I've literally not got a bad thing to say. It's 10 out of 10 from me. And I'm in no way affiliated to them. I'm just a guy that wanted a beard transplant, something I've wanted for years. I chose to come to Hair of Istanbul because of the amount of feedback and the positive reviews that they've got online. That was really important to me. I researched a number of clinics. But for me, Hair of Istanbul came up above every single one of them by a long way, aided by the fact that they were communicating all the time, and now my experience. It's just been brilliant, and I will be back again next year for a hair transplant. So thank you very much, Hair of Istanbul. I've known that I want a beard for a very long time, and it sounds like such a silly thing to say, and a lot of men are embarrassed by saying that, especially when you can't grow one. It somehow feels not very manly. And so I've always been just a little bit weary of kind of getting a beard transplant. But then I sat and I thought, people get their teeth fixed, people dye their hair, people get, implants, they get surgeries to make themselves feel better and, be the person they want to be. And if this is something that makes me feel better, then let's do it, Yeah, so the long and short of it is, I think in today's day and age, there's no need to be embarrassed by it. It is something that if it makes you feel better about yourself, you should absolutely do. Further to that, I work in the theatre industry, and so it's really important for my job that I'm able to look differently depending on what role I'm playing, and so this is going to help immensely. So yes, it is partly to do with my job, but beyond anything else, it's about how I want to portray myself and how I want to feel when I look in the mirror. And I know that when this heals and I see the results in full after a couple of months, I know it's going to have all been worthwhile.